In a world where over 40% of adults have permanently marked their skin, there exists a quieter group, the ones who watch from the edges, the ones who have never felt the needle, never chosen the ink, never sat in that chair and committed to something that would last beyond every other decision they have ever made. And if you have ever wondered what that says about them, what silent story their unmarked skin might tell, you are about to find out. Because the psychology behind staying blank is far more revealing than you might expect. Think about the last time you made a decision you knew you could never take back. Maybe it was a word you said in anger, a door you closed knowing you could never walk back through it, a path you chose with full awareness that the other would disappear forever. There is a particular weight to permanence, a gravity that some people feel more deeply than others. And for those who never get tattoos, that weight is not something they ignore or dismiss. It is something they carry with them, quietly, thoughtfully, in every choice they make throughout their lives. This is not about fear, at least, not in the way most people think. It is about something far more interesting, far more nuanced, far more revealing of how certain minds work. It is about how specific types of people process the concept of forever, how they relate to time itself, and what permanence truly means to a consciousness that experiences the world differently than most. Consider a case profile. A woman in her late 30s who has built a successful life by every external measure. She has watched her friends collect tattoos over the years, gathering them like souvenirs from the journey of their lives, memorial pieces for loved ones lost, artistic expressions of values held close, impulsive marks from wild nights they wanted to remember forever. She has listened to their stories with genuine interest, traced the lines with her eyes, asked about the meaning behind each one. But when someone asks why she has never gotten one herself, she pauses. Not because she does not know the answer, but because the answer feels too complicated, too layered, too intimate to explain in casual conversation over coffee. The truth is, she thinks in decades. When she imagines a tattoo on her own skin, she does not see it as it would appear today. She sees it at 50, at 70, at 85. She imagines the way it will stretch and fade as her body changes with time. She imagines the way its meaning might shift as she becomes someone she cannot yet predict, someone she has not yet had the chance to become. And that uncertainty, that inability to know who she will be in the future, makes the commitment feel impossible to make in the present moment. This is the first psychological pattern we find in people who never get tattoos, a heightened awareness of what researchers call future self-continuity. Psychologists have studied this phenomenon extensively over the past several decades, trying to understand why some people connect deeply with their future selves, while others treat that future person as almost a stranger. Most people experience what the literature refers to as temporal discounting. They value their present self far more than their future self. The person they will be in 20 years feels almost like someone else entirely, someone distant and abstract, someone whose preferences and feelings matter less than the desires of right now. But there is a subset of people who experience time very differently. For them, the future self is not a stranger at all. It is an extension of who they are today, as real and as present as the reflection they see in the mirror each morning. They can feel that future person's potential regret, their possible disappointment, their changed perspective on decisions made decades before. And that deep connection to their future self creates a kind of psychological paralysis when it comes to permanent decisions that cannot be undone. This does not mean they are indecisive in general. Often, they are precisely the opposite. They make firm choices about careers, relationships, where to live and how to spend their precious time. They commit fully to paths they have chosen after careful consideration. But those choices feel different because they carry within them the possibility of revision. A job can be left if it no longer fits who they have become. A city can be abandoned if circumstances change or new opportunities arise. Even a marriage, as permanent as it seems on the day of the ceremony, carries the theoretical possibility of change if necessary. A tattoo does not offer this safety valve. A tattoo is forever in a way that almost nothing else in modern life truly is. And that forever is precisely what makes it unbearable for certain minds to accept. There is another layer to this psychology, one that runs even deeper beneath the surface and reveals something fundamental about how people construct their sense of self. It involves the relationship between personal identity and the physical body. For some people, the body is a canvas, a place to display who they are, what they value, what they have survived and overcome. The skin becomes a gallery of personal history, each tattoo a chapter made visible for the world to see and appreciate. But for others, the body is something else entirely. It is not a canvas meant to be decorated or adorned. It is a vessel, a temporary home for something larger and less defined, something that transcends the physical form. And marking that vessel feels like trying to pin down a cloud, an attempt to solidify something that is meant to remain fluid and changing and free. Let us look at a narrative illustration. A man in his early 40s who has spent his entire adult life working in creative fields, painting, writing, composing music, designing spaces that people move through and inhabit. He has created thousands of works over the years, each one an expression of who he was at the precise moment of its creation. And yet, despite this deep commitment to self-expression through art, his skin remains completely unmarked. When asked about this apparent contradiction, he offers a response that reveals everything about how his mind works and why he has made this particular choice. He says that his art is meant to exist outside of him. It is released into the world, separate, independent, no longer his once it leaves his hands. It belongs to anyone who encounters it, free to mean whatever they need it to mean, free to evolve and change in the minds of those who experience it. But a tattoo would be different. A tattoo would be fused to him forever, inseparable from his flesh, a permanent declaration of identity that he could never set free, never give away, never allow to evolve beyond his own skin. And the idea of that permanence, of being forever defined by a choice made at one specific moment in time, feels like a cage rather than an expression of freedom. This reveals the second major psychological pattern, a fluid sense of self that resists fixed definitions. These individuals often score high on psychological measures of openness to experience. They are curious about everything that crosses their path, adaptable to changing circumstances, constantly evolving in ways both large and small. They see personal growth not as a linear progression toward a final destination, but as an ongoing process of becoming, a journey without a fixed endpoint or predetermined arrival. For them, the question is not whether a particular tattoo design is meaningful today. Of course it is. They can appreciate beauty and significance as deeply as anyone else, perhaps even more so. The question is whether any symbol could possibly represent who they are across all the versions of themselves they will become over the course of a lifetime. And the answer, inevitably, is no. Nothing feels permanent enough to match something that is permanent. There is a certain irony here that deserves attention and reflection. The very depth of their self-reflection, the very seriousness with which they take the question of identity, is what prevents them from making the kind of statement a tattoo requires. They think too much about it. They consider too many angles and possibilities and future scenarios. They respect the decision too deeply to ever actually make it. But there is something else at work here too. Something that operates beneath conscious awareness and shapes behavior in ways people rarely examine. Something connected to the fundamental human need for control over our lives and circumstances. Human beings have a deep driving need to feel in control of their lives and their destinies. This need manifests differently in different people, taking various forms depending on personality and experience. Some seek control through external achievement, accumulating power, status, resources, influence over their environment and the people in it. Others seek control through internal mastery, regulating their emotions, disciplining their thoughts, maintaining stability in their inner world, regardless of what chaos happens around them. And for some, control is found in preservation, in keeping things as they are, in maintaining the original state of something valuable and precious and irreplaceable. Consider how people treat objects they truly treasure. A first edition book is kept in its dust jacket, never cracked open too wide, protected from sunlight and moisture and the oils on human fingers. A vintage car is stored carefully in climate-controlled conditions, driven sparingly on perfect days, shielded from the wear that daily use would inevitably bring. The value lies partly in the object itself, and partly in its condition, its closeness to some original, unaltered state of perfection that can never be recovered once lost. For certain individuals, the body carries this same psychological weight. The unmarked skin is not blank in any passive sense. It is pristine. It is the original condition, the factory default, the state of being that existed before any permanent alterations were made. And preserving that state provides a sense of control, a feeling of having protected something valuable from irreversible change that cannot be undone. This does not mean these individuals avoid all modification of their appearance. They might exercise intensely, shaping their bodies through discipline and effort over years. They might dye their hair, pierce their ears, experiment with makeup and fashion, and countless other changes to how they present themselves to the world. But these modifications share one crucial quality that sets them apart from tattoos. They are reversible. They can be undone. The original state remains recoverable, even if it is temporarily altered or obscured. A tattoo crosses a line that these other changes do not. It is the one modification that cannot be truly erased, that permanently alters the baseline, that shifts the original state to something new and irretrievable forever. And for people who find security in the knowledge that things can always return to how they were, that shift feels like a loss of control rather than an expression of it. There is a third psychological pattern worth exploring here, one that is perhaps the most counterintuitive of all and may surprise you to consider. We live in a culture that celebrates self-expression above almost everything else. Social media encourages us constantly to broadcast our identities to the world, to make ourselves visible and known, to declare who we are in bold and public ways that invite engagement and reaction and connection. Tattoos fit perfectly into this cultural framework. They are permanent advertisements of personal meaning, visible statements that invite conversation, comparison, connection with others who share similar values or aesthetics or experiences. But not everyone is comfortable with this level of visibility. Some people prefer to keep their inner worlds private and protected, not out of shame or embarrassment, not out of fear of judgment from others, but out of a genuine sense that the most meaningful parts of themselves are not meant to be displayed for public consumption. Let us consider another narrative illustration. A woman who works in a helping profession, spending her days in service to others who need her presence and attention. She listens to people share their deepest struggles and fears. She holds space for their pain, their confusion, their growth and transformation. Over time, she is deeply empathetic, profoundly connected to the people she serves. And yet, she maintains careful boundaries around her own inner life that she rarely crosses. She does not share personal details casually with acquaintances. She does not post intimate moments on social media for likes and comments from strangers. She does not seek external validation for her internal experiences. When asked about tattoos, she explains that the things she values most feel too sacred to advertise on her skin. Her love for her children, which defies any symbol or image to capture adequately. Her grief over losses she has endured, too deep and too private for public display. Her spiritual beliefs that guide her daily life. Her private joys that sustain her, her secret sorrows and hard-won wisdom. These are not things she wants strangers to ask about at parties or in checkout lines. They are not conversation starters or icebreakers designed to connect with people she does not know. They are the quiet foundations of her existence, precious precisely because they remain hidden from casual view. This reveals the third pattern clearly, a preference for internal rather than external validation. These individuals do not need their values to be visible in order to feel confident in them. They do not require public acknowledgement of their identity to know who they are deep down at their core. The meaning they find in life is not diminished by being invisible to others. In fact, it may be enhanced by remaining private and protected from outside opinion and interpretation. There is a particular strength in this orientation toward life, a kind of psychological security that does not depend on external confirmation or approval from the world. These people know themselves deeply and truly, but they hold that knowledge quietly within. They do not need the world to witness their inner life in order to feel that it matters and has value. And when they look at tattoos, they see a form of self-expression that contradicts this fundamental orientation toward privacy. They see a permanent public declaration of something that feels more authentic when it remains private. They see an invitation for questions they do not want to answer, for conversations about meanings they prefer to keep to themselves and those closest to them. This is not judgment of those who choose differently. Many people who get tattoos share these same deep values about meaning and authenticity. They simply express them differently than those who abstain. They find significance in making the private public, in wearing their hearts on their skin, in inviting connection through visibility. Neither approach is superior to the other. They are simply different psychological orientations toward the same fundamental questions of identity and meaning. But understanding why some people never get tattoos requires understanding that visibility itself can feel like a compromise for certain minds, that some things are kept precious precisely by being kept hidden, that the unmarked skin is not a failure of self-expression, but a different form of it entirely. There is one more dimension to explore here, one that connects all these patterns into a larger psychological picture and reveals something profound about how different minds work. People who never get tattoos often share a particular relationship with regret, not that they experience more of it than others, but that they anticipate it more vividly and completely. They can imagine, with unusual clarity, The feeling of looking at something years from now and wishing it were different. They can project themselves into future moments of disappointment and feel those emotions in advance, as if they were experiencing them right now in the present. This capacity for anticipated regret is both a gift and a burden that shapes their entire lives. It protects them from impulsive decisions they might later wish they had avoided. It encourages careful consideration, thorough analysis, patient waiting before committing to anything permanent. But it also limits spontaneity in ways they sometimes wish it did not. It makes certain kinds of joy harder to access. The joy of leaping without looking, of trusting the moment completely, of embracing uncertainty as adventure rather than threat. And so the unmarked skin becomes a symbol of something larger than just the absence of tattoos. It represents a particular way of moving through the world, a way that privileges caution over spontaneity, that values the ability to change over the power of permanent declaration, that finds security in options rather than commitments, that respects the future self as much as the present one. This is not better or worse than other ways of being. It is simply one approach to the fundamental human challenge of building a meaningful life in a world of uncertainty. Some people meet that challenge by making bold, permanent choices that stake their claim on who they are right now. Others meet it by remaining fluid, adaptable, open to becoming someone they cannot yet imagine. The psychology of people who never get tattoos is ultimately the psychology of a particular relationship with time, identity, control, privacy, and regret. It is the psychology of minds that feel the weight of permanence more heavily than most. Minds that take the question of forever seriously enough to hesitate before answering it. And perhaps that hesitation, that refusal to commit to a single symbol or statement, is itself a kind of answer. A declaration that the self is too complex, too evolving, too sacred to be captured in any permanent form. That the blank skin is not empty but full of potential, not unmarked but waiting, not indecisive but infinitely open. If you have made it this far, you already know which category you fall into, the ones who mark and the ones who wait. And maybe now you understand a little better why that difference exists, why some of us rush toward permanence while others step back from it. Why a simple question about tattoos can reveal something so much deeper about the mind behind the answer. If this exploration resonated with you, if it made you see yourself or someone you love a little more clearly, consider subscribing. Because understanding the psychology behind everyday choices is what we do here. And there are always more layers to uncover, more questions to ask, more quiet truths waiting to be found.